My dad lifted his glass like he was about to bless the room, but instead he said, "Some kids make you proud. Others just take up space." The table erupted with laughter. My brother smirked. My mother looked down at her plate like it held all the answers she'd never spoken aloud. And me, I just smiled at the man who'd spent my whole life pretending I was invisible and said, "Good thing I just got my own place, 3,000 miles away." The room went silent. Forks frozen mid-air, wine glasses suspended in guilty hands. They thought that was the moment everything changed. They had no idea what I had already discovered or what I was about to expose. I grew up in a house where pride had a shape, a sound, a chosen direction, and it was never, ever pointed at me. From the outside, our Indianapolis home looked like any other quiet suburban house. Neighbors waved from driveways, kids biked along the streets in packs, their laughter echoing between the houses. Every fall, the maple trees lit up the block like a postcard, all burnt orange and golden yellow. But inside everything revolved around my father's definition of worth, and that definition began and ended with my brother, Mason. He was the golden child long before either of us understood what that meant. His football trophies lined the hallway like a glowing shrine, each one polished every Sunday morning until they caught the light just right. My certificates, the ones I earned for science competitions, robotics awards, perfect grades, they were buried in drawers, stacked under old instruction manuals and forgotten receipts. Dad used to clap Mason on the back so hard the sound filled the entire house. It was this booming, proud sound that said, "This is my son. This is what matters." When I came home with a science award in middle school, the kind that meant I'd beaten out hundreds of other students, he glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds and said, "That's nice, Nora. Don't make your brother feel bad." Don't make your brother feel bad. As if my accomplishments were somehow an attack on him. As if I should be smaller so Mason could shine brighter. A lifetime of small cuts, delivered with a smile. That's what it was. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one saying, "You're not enough, you'll never be enough, stop trying to be seen." Mom wasn't cruel, not in the obvious way. She was scared. Scared of conflict. Scared of confrontation. Scared of making waves in the fragile peace Dad demanded. She'd fold napkins when Dad raised his voice, stir pots that didn't need stirring, whisper to me in the kitchen, "Just let it go, sweetheart. It's not worth the fight." Her silence hurt more than anything he ever said, because it taught me, early and deep, that my feelings took up too much space, that I was the problem for feeling hurt, not him for causing it. So I learned to disappear. The basement became my refuge. It smelled like metal and dust and safety. While upstairs echoed with ESPN highlights and celebrations of Mason's victories, another touchdown, another scholarship offer, another reason for Dad to beam with pride. Downstairs belonged to me. I fixed broken radios down there, rebuilt cheap keyboards I found at garage sales, soldered wires until my fingertips tingled and smelled like burnt metal. Machines didn't care about favorites. They didn't compare you to your brother or wonder why you couldn't be more like someone else. They only cared if you listened, if you understood them, if you could make them work again. I was good at that, making broken things whole. Grandma Eleanor was the only one who ever listened like that. She'd visit on Saturdays with warm pastries and even warmer eyes, asking about whatever project cluttered my workbench. She'd sit on that old stool in the corner, sipping tea from a chipped mug, genuinely interested in the circuit board I was mapping or the radio I was resurrecting. "You see the world differently, Nora," she'd say, her wrinkled hand covering mine. "Don't let anyone tell you that's wrong. Different doesn't mean less." Those words kept me alive some days. By 18, I had perfected the art of being quiet and useful, the exact combination Dad preferred. Invisible when convenient, helpful when needed, never demanding attention or space or acknowledgement. When I was accepted to a top engineering program across the country, full scholarship, one of only 30 students chosen nationwide, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the thing that made him see me. I brought the letter to the dinner table, my hands shaking, set it down next to his plate. He barely looked up from his newspaper, barely glanced at the embossed letterhead or the words that represented everything I'd worked for. "Figure it out yourself," he muttered, turning the page. That was it. No congratulations, no pride, not even surprise. Just figure it out yourself. So, I did. I worked nights at a 24-hour diner, smelling like grease and coffee, collecting tips in a jar under my bed. I saved every single dollar, ate ramen for dinner more times than I could count, and 3 months later, I boarded a plane to Seattle with a backpack, a scholarship, letter no one had congratulated me for, and a determination that burned hotter than any anger I'd ever felt. I thought distance would help. That maybe if I wasn't there, constantly reminding him of his failure to love me, things would get easier. But distance doesn't fix what someone refuses to see. 4 years passed. 4 years of building a life he knew nothing about. I graduated top of my class, got hired at a tech company doing meaningful work on sustainable energy systems, moved into a small apartment with big windows that let in the Seattle light. I didn't call home much. What was there to say? Mason got engaged. Dad threw him a party. I wasn't invited until Mom called, embarrassed, saying it was just an oversight. An oversight. Like I was a dentist appointment they forgot to write down. But that Thanksgiving, Grandma Eleanor called me personally. "Come home, sweetheart," she said. "I miss you, and I think it's time." Time for what, she didn't say, but I heard something in her voice. Something urgent and sad and hopeful all at once. So I flew home for Thanksgiving. The house looked exactly the same. Same fall wreath on the door, same maple trees blazing in the yard, same Mason's trophy hallway that I had to walk through to reach the dining room. Dinner was tense from the start. Mason's wife kept trying to make small talk. His kids were glued to their tablets. Mom overcooked the turkey the way she always did when she was nervous. And Dad? Dad held court at the head of the table like always, telling stories about Mason's glory days, barely acknowledging I was there. Then came the toast. He stood, glass raised, that familiar smile on his face, the smile that said he was about to say something funny, something everyone would laugh at, something that would remind us all who mattered in this family. "Some kids make you proud," he said, looking right at Mason. "Others just take up space." The table erupted. Laughter, loud and sharp. Mason snorted into his wine, grinning like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. His wife looked uncomfortable, but stayed silent. Mom's eyes traced the pattern on her plate like she was memorizing it. The kids didn't even look up. And me? Something inside me clicked. Not broke, clicked. Like a lock finally finding its key. Like a door I'd been pushing against suddenly swinging open. I should have cried, I should have argued or yelled or stormed out dramatically. That's what they expected. The sensitive daughter overreacting again, making everything about herself. Instead, I lifted my glass, smiled a real smile, not the practiced, careful one I'd perfected for their comfort, but something genuine and sharp and finally free. "Good thing I just got my own place," I said, letting each word land softly, clearly, like stones dropping into still water. 3,000 miles away. Don't worry, Dad. You'll never have to make space for me again. The laughter died. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Chairs squeaked as people shifted uncomfortably. Even the kids looked up from their screens. Dad's jaw tightened, not with guilt, but with surprise. Like a lamp that suddenly started talking. Mason blinked, confused, his grin fading. Mom whispered, "Nora," but it was too soft, too late, too much like every other time she'd chosen peace over protecting me. I set my napkin down, carefully, deliberately, pushed my chair back. Stood. "Thanks for dinner," I said, calm and controlled. Then I walked out. Outside, the November air stung my face. The house behind me, the Hall house, the family home, the place I'd spent 18 years trying to earn love, suddenly looked smaller, fragile, like if I breathed too hard, it might collapse. Their voices drifted through the closed door. First confusion, then annoyance, then dismissal. I knew exactly what they were saying without hearing the words. Dramatic, ungrateful, always making everything about herself. No one followed me out. I drove through empty streets, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, memories unfurling like a film reel I'd tried to forget. Mason blowing out birthday candles while mine went unlit because we celebrated together, but his cake was always bigger. Dad pacing the sidelines at every single one of Mason's games, forgetting my robotics competition. Mom smoothing over tension instead of ever, even once, standing up for me. The pattern was always there. I just stopped pretending it might change. By the time I reached my hotel, something had shifted inside me, from hurt to clarity, from grief to understanding. Leaving that table wasn't the ending of our family. It was the beginning of a boundary they never expected me to draw. I opened a message thread with Grandma Eleanor. My hands were steadier now. "I'm in town. Can I see you tomorrow?" Her reply came within seconds. "Of course, sweetheart. Always." For the first time that night, I let myself breathe. The next morning, I met Grandma at a small diner she loved. Chipped mugs, fresh biscuits, the smell of coffee and bacon drifting through warm air. Her silver hair caught the morning light like something gentle in a harsh world. She took my hand across the table and said, "You look tired, Nora. Not in your face, in your spirit." We talked for hours about my work, about Seattle, about the apartment I'd made into a real home. She asked for pictures, scrolling through my phone with genuine interest. The long walnut dining table I'd chosen, no head seat, just equal chairs all around, caught her eye. "Equal seats," she murmured, smiling. "Good girl." Then softly, "What did he say this time?" I repeated Dad's toast, word for word. She was quiet for a long moment, her tea growing cold between her hands. Finally, "You deserved better than that. You've deserved better than that since the day you were born." Driving back to her house afterward, I noticed things I'd missed before. The thick folder of bills on her kitchen counter. The way she moved a little slower, held onto the railing a little tighter. Nothing alarming, just the evidence of someone aging, managing too much alone. I realized, with sudden clarity, how many decisions Dad had taken from her over the years. How he'd sidelined her the same way he'd sidelined me. Different methods, same message. You don't matter as much. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I wouldn't leave her the way he'd left me. Returning to Seattle felt like surfacing from underwater. My apartment welcomed me back. The plants I'd been nurturing, the books stacked on shelves I'd built myself, the kitchen where I'd learned to cook meals that actually nourished me. But something was different now. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was ready to build. I started small. New curtains, deep blue instead of the beige that came with the place, rearranged furniture so the space felt more mine, fresh flowers on the counter every week, even though no one saw them but me. One small, intentional detail at a time, I built a life that looked like freedom. Work opportunities grew. My boss trusted me with increasingly complex projects. I delivered every single time. No posts on social media to prove anything, no updates designed to make anyone proud, just the quiet, steady evidence of who I had become. The holidays approached. I dreaded them usually. The expectations, the obligations, the reminder that I didn't quite fit in my own family. But this year, I did something different. I invited people to Thanksgiving dinner at my place, real people who actually showed up in my life. The neighbor who'd helped me move in, an old professor who'd believed in me, colleagues who'd become genuine friends. We sat at my long table, all those equal seats, and I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been clenched tight my entire life. This was family, not the one you're born into, the one you choose, the one that chooses you back. Someone took photos that night, posted them online with tags. Those photos traveled fast, the algorithm carrying them across state lines, landing in Indianapolis feeds, rattling people who'd insisted I took up too much space. 3 days later, the call came. Dad's number on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity maybe, or the last thread of hope I couldn't quite cut, made me pick up. "Everyone's talking about you," he said, no greeting. "You embarrassed us." I kept my voice calm, level. "Those photos? They show my table. People who care about me. That's not embarrassing, Dad. That's just life." I heard movement, then Grandma Eleanor's soft voice in the background. "Let me talk to her." "Grandma?" "Nora, sweetheart, you built something gentle, something safe. That's nothing to be ashamed of." Dad's voice again, sharp. "You think you can just run off and act like we're villains? Post your perfect life online like some kind of—" "Dad," I interrupted, still calm. "You lifted a glass in front of your entire family and told everyone I take up space. That wasn't me being dramatic. That was you making a joke at my expense, like you've done my entire life." Silence. Then, "You're coming home for New Year's Eve. We need to fix this." The old me would have caved, would have apologized for making things difficult, would have shown up and smiled and pretended everything was fine. But I wasn't her anymore. "No," I said, "I'm not coming home, but you're welcome to visit me. If you want to sit at my table, as equals, you're welcome here." More silence. Longer this time. Finally, "Fine. We'll come to you." The knock on my door 3 days later felt like a heartbeat, loud, insistent, impossible to ignore. I'd prepared. Dinner was ready. The long walnut table was set with 3 place settings, no seat more important than any other. Dad noticed immediately. His eyes scanned the table, looking for the head seat that wasn't there. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened. We sat. Mom complimented the meal in a thin, nervous voice. Dad ate in silence, every bite seeming to cost him something. The photos on my walls, me with colleagues, friends, neighbors, Grandma Eleanor, but none with him. I didn't apologize for that. Halfway through dinner, he finally spoke. "So, you're doing well?" I set my fork down, met his eyes. "I am." "And you didn't think to tell us?" "You never wanted to hear it, Dad. Not really." Mom's voice, barely above a whisper. "We never meant to make you feel less than, Nora. We didn't know how." Intentions don't erase impact, I said, and the words came easier than I expected. You protected Mason, celebrated Mason, made room for Mason, and I learned to survive alone. That's what happened, whether you meant it or not. For the first time in my life, my father looked small. I didn't shout, didn't cry, just told the truth. You told a room full of people I take up space. But I built a life 3,000 miles away. I built my own table, my own family, my own peace, without you. His voice cracked. I didn't know how to love you the way you needed. Mom reached across the table, her hand trembling. Can we try? Even if it's slow? Even if we get it wrong sometimes? I looked at both of them, these people who'd given me life but not always love, who'd housed me but not always seen me. I'm not coming home, I said. That house was never really mine, but you're welcome to visit, if you're willing to sit as equals, if you're willing to see me. When they left that night, the door clicked softly behind them. Cold air brushed my face as I stood in the doorway watching their rental car disappear down the street. I hadn't just stood up at Thanksgiving dinner. I had rewritten the rules. New Year's morning in Seattle felt washed clean, like someone had turned down the volume of the world. My apartment was quiet. No forced conversations, no unspoken accusations, just stillness and peace and the sound of my own breathing. My parents' visit hadn't erased years of shrinking myself to fit their expectations, but something had shifted. Not a fix, but a beginning. Grandma Eleanor called. How are you, sweetheart? I'm good, I said, and meant it. Really good. Good. You just have to keep choosing yourself, Nora, every single day. That's how you build a life worth living. Choosing myself looked like small things, cooking dinner at my own pace, inviting friends over without anxiety, walking through the city without feeling like I owed anyone an explanation for my existence. I found joy in rebuilding intentionally, slowly, without apology. At work, when my boss complimented a project, I said thank you instead of deflecting. Years of rehearsed humility vanished. I wasn't hiding anymore. One evening, as I set a single plate on my long table, just me, just dinner, just existing, I paused. The table that had once been a symbol of rebellion, a statement against everything I'd grown up with, had become something gentler, a promise, a place where I finally occupied space fully, without fear, without apology, without making myself smaller so others could feel bigger. New Year's night settled over the bay like a soft curtain. I stepped onto my balcony, cold air brushing my face, the city lights spreading out before me like possibilities. And I understood, finally, the truth that had taken 26 years to learn. Some kids make their parents proud. Others make themselves free. And maybe, if I was lucky, I could eventually be both. But if I had to choose, I chose freedom. I chose the table where I belonged. I chose myself every single time.